All right, here we go, folks. Call this meeting to order. Ms. Fazzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn? Here. Mayor Teddemer?
Here. Today's invocation is led by Pastor Jay Powell of Church at the Beach. Please rise.
Father God, we thank you for the morning, the opportunity to be at a city council meeting. We thank you for being able to live in Panama City Beach, a great place to live. And I thank you for the council, the mayor, everybody who serves and works here with this city. I ask that you give everyone wisdom and allow decisions to be made for the betterment of all of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join Councilman Register for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Moving on to community announcements. Friday the 30th and Saturday the 31st is PCB Mardi Gras and Music Festival. That is at Aaron Besant Park. Should be a good time. On Saturday, February 7th and Sunday, February 8th, there's the Food Truck Festival. If you haven't eaten enough the week beforehand, you can join that. That's also at Aaron Besant Park. And our next city council meeting is Thursday, February 12th at 5 p.m. Move on to the approval of the meeting minutes. Ms. Fazzoni, or
Motion to
first.
approve. Second.
we got a motion and a second. Ms. Fazzoni?
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yep. I should say yes. We now move on to the approval of the agenda and additions or deletions. Mr. Whitman, anything?
No, sir.
Anything from the council?
No, sir.
Motion approved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Fazzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes. Move on to presentations. Our first, are we doing the years of service?
if we want. I don't know.
You want to do years of service first?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, let's do years of service first. I mean, we got a lot of presentations today.
We
so-
do 6 of them.
Is it on?
Yes, sir.
You get Miss Gorman and Chief to come join me. Good morning. On behalf of the mayor, the city council, and staff of the city of Panama City Beach, we extend the sincerest appreciation to Savannah Gorman for the dedicated service and commitment to the city of Panama City Beach for 10 years. Thank you so much. Chief, you want to hold on? You thought.
Savannah, you got to give a speech.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Sergeant Gorman here has been such a valuable member of the Beach Police since she started. She's the number 2 in our Criminal Investigations Division, tasked with primarily investigating violent crime. I was actually looking at some stats not so long ago, and she's either at the very top or at the top of the amount of homicides and violent crime solved by any detective in the history of the Panama City Beach Police Department.
Wow.
So to say that she's a valuable asset to this agency and this city is an understatement. So, Sergeant, thank you and congratulations on 10 years.
Miss Aubrey. Good morning. How are you? On behalf of the mayor, the city council, and staff of the city of Panama City Beach, we extend the sincerest appreciation to Wendy Aubrey for dedicated service for the and commitment to the city of Panama City Beach for 20 years. Wow, congratulations.
You know, I can't say enough good things about Wendy. She's in the top 1% of dispatchers in America that make it 20 years in that line of work. 20 years of the most traumatic phone calls, chaotic radio traffic that you can get. You know, we sort of come up together. We sort of got hired close to about the same time, so we've seen the city grow and the challenges that come with a growing city when it comes to public safety. And you know when she's on the radio, because everything, well, I mean, she's a magnet for chaos, but, you know, she manages it to perfection. And for 20 years, I couldn't be more proud and cannot say thank you enough for everything you've done for this police department and this city. So thank you. Congratulations, Wendy.
Captain Maddox. Good morning, sir. On behalf of the mayor, the city council, and staff of the city of Panama City Beach, extend the sincere appreciation to Captain Wayne Maddox for dedicated service and commitment to the city of Panama City Beach for 30 years. Just hold on, you don't get to run either, but
Is he retiring already?
just to put in perspective, you've been putting your life on the line since I was 6 years old for this city. So, not to make you feel old today, but we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
You know, 10, a 20, and a 30, you know, we're all here recognizing today, and it just shows the commitment of this agency, all right, to protecting the people that live and visit here. You know, when I got hired, you know, 23 years ago, Captain, now then Lieutenant Maddox was my first supervisor. He was a lieutenant on the shift. And to say the amount of wisdom and knowledge I've received from this man is an understatement. I had a little bit of a lead foot as a rookie officer. My idea was get to the call as quick as possible. And sometimes, I might get a little out of control. And something he said to me back then still sticks with me today. If you don't get there, you can't help. Right? So I use that same message, to all our younger officers that I see maybe, I might have to discipline for speeding every now and then. On top of that, he showed me what an example is to balance work and family. And his dedication to his family far surpasses his dedication to this job, but he balances it extremely well. 30 years, I think I got him convinced to stick a couple more out. I don't know. We're working on that. We're working on that. I'm putting that on public record right now. We'll replay it. But Wayne, it's been a pleasure, brother. And you're not going to leave here without saying a couple words, though.
So, first of all, I want to thank the good Lord above. Without His guidance and oversight over my life and my career, and my extended family out there, nothing would be possible. It's a trying career. You tend to have highs and lows, and you try not to have way too many highs and way too many lows. You kind of want to stay in the middle, and so you're grounded. It makes you a better person. It makes you a better officer, not only for you and your family, but for this agency and this city, who has done nothing but provided opportunities for me and my family. And for that, I'm grateful. There's people in this room that I went to battle with. And when I say battle, that's exactly what I mean. And I'm not a public speaker, as you can see, like this man to the left. He does a good job. But Chief, present administration, past administration has done nothing but awarded me and my family the opportunity to thrive in this career. And you guys are my family. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the half-cent sales tax Citizens Oversight Committee report. Chairman?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Board. My name is Bruce Biaggi. I'm the chairman for the half-cent sales tax Citizens Oversight Committee. On December 16th of 2025, the report and findings, the committee has reviewed the schedule of surtax proceeds collected by the city from October 24th through September of 2025 in the amount of $2,673,132.27. Since the inception of the surtax as approved by the Bay County Board of County Commissioners on November 10th, 2016, via Bay County Ordinance 16-21, the total proceeds collected amounted to $15,568,656.36. The total paid out for all projects to date is $10,515,685.20. The committee ascertained that the monies paid out since its last report, November 12th of 2024, the total was $386,681.68, were used by the city to finance, plan, and construct projects that repair local roads, reduce traffic congestion, and improve traffic flow, increase neighborhood safety with the pedestrian's path, provide sidewalks near schools, and or reduce local flooding in accordance with Resolution 17-39 of the City of Panama City Beach. According to the committee's finds, that surtax proceeds have been properly accounted for and expended in accordance with Resolution of 17-39. Supporting documentation is attached on one of the files at the entrance.
Okay.
And
Thank
that's all
you,
I got.
Chairman Biaggi. Thank you for your service on that committee as well.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. We now move on to the Police Department update by Chief Talamentes. Drew, if you can kind of just intro why we're starting to do some of these department updates.
Yeah, I just want to get you guys up to date with the cities or all the departments are doing behind the scenes, so you guys are aware of it and the public's aware of it. You'll start seeing all the department heads at the second meeting of every month giving an update on what their units are doing, show a little pride for their department, and respect the men and women that are working for them. So just a quick update for everybody.
All right. Thank you. Chief?
Great. Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to highlight the great efforts of my staff. I'll go through a couple of slides and I'll open up to any questions. But I want to say that you guys have a very dedicated, professional, and ethical police department working for you. Our mission statement, service, integrity, commitment, compassion, those components, those words are the foundation of everything we do, right? We're here to provide a quality service to our community and do that with integrity. All right, we are committed to keeping Panama City Beach safe and vibrant, to be a great place for people to live and to visit. And compassion is the very foundation of everything we do. We understand there's good people, there's bad people, and then there are people that just make mistakes, and we try to balance our enforcement approach with that in mind. So currently, right now, we have 110 budgeted positions within the agency. That's a combination of both sworn and civilian staff, every single one of them holding an important role and just as important as each other. But right now, we have 87 sworn police officers budgeted. Right now, these numbers have changed because they fluctuate quite a bit over time, but I think we have 79 currently working. So we have some vacancies, but as of this morning, we have 8 people in background to be hired, right? So not all of them will probably make through the background process because it's a very stringent background process, but we do expect to be at a level of staffing that will be sufficient to meet the challenges of the season to come. Our patrol division, which I'll talk about here in a little bit more, has about 66 of those sworn officers assigned to that. That's roughly the modern model in regards to the percentage of officers you have to field services, which is patrol, and the others you allocate to investigative administrative work. Right now we have 12 detectives, 9 administrative officers, myself included, in the command staff. Your police department has a full-time communications room, which is our dispatch center. There are 14 full-time and 2 part-time employees that work in there. There's about 12 currently actively working. We have 1 or 2 in background right now, and those numbers fluctuate from full to maybe 2 or 3 down, depending on the time of the year, because it's a very challenging job. But that division itself has done an amazing job of keeping its staff over these past, I would say, 3 years compared to previous, I would say, 5 to 7. We have a civilian administrative assistants. They help us with day-to-day functions from paperwork, data entry, and just a day-to-day typical administrative work that goes along with the police department. 2 crime scene technicians that are on call 24/7, as well as 2 crime analysts that assist with everything, especially their role in this coming up spring break has been very important. So in case you didn't know, our city is, at least for police department purposes and law enforcement purposes, it's separated in zones, right? A, B, C, and D. A being our far west district, B and C being the center of the beach, and D zone being the far east district. The roads and sort of where it picks up and where it stops, it is broken up because of the unincorporated area that, we all know. We're in the city one minute and then we're in a county another. But we manage that very well, and with cooperation with the Sheriff's Office, we're able to provide a fluid law enforcement response to all the highlighted areas you see, as well as provide support services to the county when they need it. So we'll go through the divisions. Obviously, myself and the deputy chief are up here, so no reason to highlight, who we are. You all know who we are, but some of the key important figures of the agency you might not see or hear from every day are the members of the command staff who are responsible for the day-to-day operations. We'll talk about field services. It is the heart and soul of police work. They are the uniformed patrol officer out there. You call 911 as one of these guys that can be showing up. Captain James Smeeby is in charge of that division. It is the largest division within the police department, 24/7 coverage. They respond to everything from bark and dog calls, traffic accidents, and to violent crime. It is a challenge nowadays in many ways to ensure that 24/7 coverage and staffing is provided to any municipality because of recruitment challenges within law enforcement, but the captain here has done a great job to ensure that he has a strategic plan so no call gets unanswered. In fact, I think we have one of the best response times in the county in regards to you call us, we're going to be there within a period of 2 to 3 minutes. That's about our average time. Criminal investigations, Captain Jason Jones, he is as jolly as that picture is right there. But they're in charge with follow-up investigations and investigating all crime that is not able to be resolved by that first encounter by that frontline officer. That officer, say, maybe your car is broken into, that initial officer will go in there and take the report, try to gather whatever evidence, and then that report will get sent up to Captain Jones's division and be assigned to a detective. That detective is assigned to immediately follow up, look for clues, the same thing you would see on TV, and investigate that case until that victim has been brought justice and that criminal has been put behind jail. He's in charge of basically coordinating a lot of task force operations that we have in partnership with state and federal agencies. We currently have several officers that are dual certified, both within our local municipality and federal agencies such as DEA, Homeland Security Investigations, and the U.S. Marshal Service. These detectives are trained on interview and interrogations and everything they need to do to be able to solve any type of case that might arise from, like I said, a stolen bike to a homicide. We are a full-service law enforcement agency. Our administrative division, you just met Captain Maddox. He oversees the day-to-day of our admin. That includes our recruitment, our hiring, our professional development programs, our training. He's responsible for overseeing our accreditation through the state of Florida. We are an accredited law enforcement agency. I'm very proud to say that. We work very hard to do that. He ensures that we stay in compliance, that our strategic plan stays up to date, and that while we're out there doing the day-to-day police work, the administrative role of the agency does not get left behind, and there's somebody fully focused on ensuring that we stay in compliance with state law. Our professional standards unit is ran by Captain Rich McClanahan. He oversees any type of internal investigation that might come in, and if there is an officer complaint, if there is an allegation, Captain McClanahan will ensure that allegation and complaint is fully vetted, investigated, and there is a resolution brought to it. He conducts our background investigations as well. He's a certified voice stress analysis administrator. So basically, it's a lie detector. We make all of our new employees go through that as a standard practice in law enforcement. He does audits in our evidence room, and he ensures that we stay in compliance and full transparency to what we're supposed to be doing. He's our balance to our checks. Our communications division is ran by Tabitha Haddle. I don't think there's a better communications director anywhere in the country. She is probably the most dedicated employee I have ever worked with from the civilian sector. She runs that communication room like a symphony. I don't know how she does it. If anybody's walked in there during a chaotic time, I don't know how they pull it off, but she does it with grace. She oversees the entire staff that's within there. Like I said, there's about 14 individuals, from radio calls to phone calls to communicating back and forth with the officers. She's responsible for all of it, to include audits in regards to NCIC, FCIC, which are our databases that she provides to those audit findings to the state. So just a real quick overview on our demand. Roughly, we estimate 50 to 65,000 CAD entries, and basically what that means are specific moments of police involvement or at a police event, right? That's us making a contact with a citizen, us responding to a call, us investigating a follow-up. All of these things are documented within our computer-aided dispatch center to ensure that we could go back and see what we've done, reflect on that, and plan for the next year, and to being able to have a cohesive law enforcement plan with historical data. Because let's face it, in 2026, data is king in regards to progressive intelligence-led policing, which we are a part of. Specialized units. Like I said, we're a full-service law enforcement agency. We have a SWAT team. It is part-time. We have one of the largest canine units in the region. I think the only one that comes close to us is Pensacola. Unfortunately, over the holidays, we did lose a canine for a medical-related reason. But after we get through spring break, we're going to look at replacing one of our that specific dog. But we will have, at full capacity, we're at 8 canines and 8 canine handlers. We have a dive team that is evidence-driven, so if somebody throws a gun in the pond, that dive team will go in there and pick it up. Marine unit, we have a vessel that they will go out and conduct marine-related enforcement in conjunction with maybe the Florida Wildlife Commission. We have an honor guard that we would assemble in case of ceremony, whether it be a funeral, a celebration, an event, very sharp-looking uniform when they go out. We have a traffic homicide unit. It's basically the officers that are trained and tasked with investigating accidents that result in a fatality or might result in a fatality. This is basically an overview of what they do in their day-to-day. All of these individuals are very dedicated professionals, and I want to highlight that they do this in addition to their day-to-day. So their primary role is whether it be on the street answering calls or a detective investigating cases. They do all of these specialized units in addition to that. Obviously, we are a major destination. Everybody knows that, and with that comes a lot of special events that our staff has to ensure that that they are planned for and they are safe. So from logistics to physical security events, to traffic road closures, to parade routes and everything that comes associated with these large-scale events, in which we have a lot of them, our staff is tasked in part with coordinating with the event holder to ensure that they are putting on a safe event. Our special operations team, which falls under Captain Maddox, are the people that typically deal with that. This is an example of some of the events that we're all familiar with that our staff is dedicated to ensuring that they're safe and they're enjoyable for everybody. One of the things we pride ourselves the most is the amount of community outreach we do with the number of officers that we have. Right? I would put up our agency against any agency in the country in regards to community outreach when comparison to numbers. Our Cops and Kids program, which has been around for 30-plus years, people collect shirts of this every single year and have a 30-year collection, is a highlight and one of our crown jewels. Every year we host a Cops and Kid event. But within the Cops and Kids umbrella, we do other things. We do Christmas with Cops right out here in front of the City Hall, which we introduced Snope, I think it's called. Snope, not snow, but we introduced that during the Christmas holiday. We do Coffee with a Cop routinely, Parents Against Predators, which is an effort that we created to empower parents to take a little bit more control of what their kids are doing online, more of a Scared Straight for Parents program, I like to say. Online Canine, which is a sort of a branch of Parents Against Predators, which one of our lieutenants has been out and teaching. Understand that these programs that we offer, these educational programs, we do them for free. You call us, we send our officers out there, and we ensure that that the community is informed, and we pull the blanket back of protection that we provide so they could have a better glimpse of the dangers facing them every day. Camp 911, great event. We team up Parks and Rec, and they bring the kids over to the PD, and they explore all things public safety. Trunk or treats, we do plenty of those, and of course our Thanksgiving and Christmas deliveries, which falls under our Holiday Helpers programs, and I would say that we have helped tens of thousands of families over the years ensure that their holidays are filled with a joy instead of struggle, by providing them food and gifts to the most needy. These are some flyers of the events that we do. We'll go into some capital updates, capital project updates that we're sort of excited for. I'm not going to provide you too many updates because we're still in some holding patterns, but I will provide you some renderings of what we're excited, what will be built. So first we'll talk about our K-9 training facility. It's been in the works for quite some time. This is going to be the location right here off of North Gulf Boulevard. We're taking over a little bit of Mark's area. It can be an amazing addition to the agency just because the size of our K-9 program, there can be challenges when the officers want to take vacation, or we need to quarantine a dog for a medical reason, or for a training facility for those canines, so that way they're not interacting with potentially other animals out there, and we have an incident we all don't want to deal with. But basically, let me get to this. This is going to be the basic footprint, so what will be the canine facility. There will be 12 kennels. That's going to provide us with the opportunity to host training for other canine programs around the region. We'll have a full classroom for them to conduct that training, small office space. This entire rendering was done with full input from our K-9 team leader. So this was designed to fit our needs. This isn't just a blanket building. This is designed to fit the beach police needs for our K-9 unit. This is what the outside will look like. As you see on the right, there's going to be a Sally Port entrance that is gated. So our K-9 officer will pull in. The gate will close behind them. The dog will be able to be let out and not be able to run freely. It's as secure a facility as we can make. Another angle, I don't know why they put a black and white in there. It's an ugly car, but our police cars will be there in presence. So we'll jump over to our police substation, which is still in the process. The site location is going to be off of Churchwell in a public paid parking area towards the east end of that parking lot. This will be the general schematics of the building. We'll have a training safe room. This is a safe room that's funded by FEMA, and it'll be utilized for dual purpose as a safe room as well as the training substation office space for us. We'll have obviously a reception. It'll be a full service building, meaning that we'll have some office space for detectives or field services that they want to use it. We'll have some storage space to put some of our equipment that we primarily use on the east end, whether that be ATVs, UTVs, and whatever might come in between. And eventually, as we grow and this gets built out, we do plan to sort of move partial east end operations to this building so it could be staffed on more of a full-time capability, but I mean, we're talking a couple years out before we get to that point, but that's the big plan. This is the sort of general of what it's going to look like on the outside. I think it looks pretty cool. And there we are. So I'm open to any questions in regards to your police department.
I mean, I'd just say thank you, Chief. We've, over the years, we've made some great strides, and I'm very pleased to see the direction that the department's going and the quality of the troops on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, your department does a lot with a little. We ask that for pretty much all the departments here in PCB just because of our funding structure. You guys do an amazing job, really extending the resources you're given.
we've got a great team.
I really appreciate all the outreach to our youth, too, so that they have good interaction with our police officers before there's an issue.
We got to bring up the next generation of police officers, or we're all going to be in trouble, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief. Currently, how many canines do we have?
So right now, full service, we have 7 because of the tragic event over the holidays, but we have 8 budgeted, and we plan to fill that replace that dog with another canine, but it's going to have to be after the season, just because of the demand of our officers. And when we replace a canine, we have to send that dog and the handler off to a 3-month training program, so we want to make sure we're in a good place to do that.
So right now, they're staying with their handler, is that correct?
That's correct. They're staying at home with their handlers.
When do we anticipate breaking ground on this new canine training facility and starting the construction of that?
So I was just talking to the architect, and I think we're waiting on some approval for a road being cut or something like that, Cole, or?
Yes, sir. We're seeking an easement for access to make the design essentially work a little bit better. We've been in negotiations with the property owner on that easement for a little while. We're almost there. So once that's done, it will go out to bid for the construction, and we can get to work.
That'd be great. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. We now move on to the Front Beach Road mobility presentation. Mr. Adair.
Good morning, John Adair, Public Works. I'm just going to do a quick introduction. On October 23rd, you guys requested a staff to present a 30,000-foot view of the alternatives regarding the Front Beach Road corridor and what that could look like. And so Jason Crenshaw, which you guys know, and Aaliyah Awad with DRMP have prepared that presentation, and hopefully you guys enjoy, and we're just looking for some direction on how to proceed going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I just want to introduce Aaliyah Awad. She is a planner and professional engineer with over 23 years of experience in transportation planning and engineering. She holds a civil engineering degree from the University of Minnesota and a master's degree in city and regional planning from Georgia Institute of Technology. Aaliyah specializes in context-sensitive roadway design, traffic analysis, and development of multimodal transportation solutions aimed at improving community connectivity. Her leadership in crafting mobility master plans and corridor feasibility studies has been instrumental in delivering safer, smarter streets throughout Florida for the last 14 years.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm very excited to go over, as John mentioned, the high-level overview of our initial evaluation of Front Beach Road and the cross-sections. So we're just going to go over a little bit of background in terms of what we looked at to give that high-level overview, a brief section about the best practices out there as it relates to Front Beach Road and the community, and then a potential path forward with the understanding that this is, a very initial set of ideas as opposed to a recommendation. And so in our review of current conditions, we looked at the historical documents, some of the ongoing work that's going on, obviously including the construction of the different segments on Front Beach Road. Besides the national required engineering standards, as well as the Florida DOT standards, there's a lot of best practice guidance as it relates to urban environments and cities, including through NACTO, which actually published recently, about last year, the Designing for Small Things with Wheels, which is pretty much applicable to micromobility devices, whether it's LSVs or scooters. I had helped author some components of that document. And so just an overview of Front Beach Road as kind of based on our evaluation and the elements that are related to this evaluation. The land development code and the different zoning and overlay and available public right-of-way presents a framework for what can be done and what the existing conditions look like. And it also kind of gives us an idea of how to think about, utilizing some of these policies or revisiting them if needed. We looked at the current, conditions in terms of volumes and crashes. Obviously, Panama City Beach is a popular tourist destination. The citizens also enjoy the different amenities and the festivals that we just talked about. And so traffic does get, congested during peak season in some sections of the corridor. And of course, it connects to major roadways like 79 and others. We also looked high level at the crashes. A future evaluation would have to look closer at the causes of these crashes. But, just generally speaking, this is a corridor that is used by all road users, essentially, drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And the ultimate goal is that everybody is able to use the corridor safely and conveniently. This is acknowledging the different segments along Front Beach Road. The city has carried on the momentum through the different sections. So this really kind of informed us in the sense that the city is already making improvements to the corridor, installing the medians and the curbs. And so as we kind of started to look at those initial ideas of what could be done, at least in the near future, we did keep in mind the fact that the segments are either just been constructed or about to be. And so just to go over, some of the ideas and best practices that are put in place for this type of evaluation, one of the main things to think about is the road user profile for each lane that we're thinking about. Right now, Front Beach Road has 2 lanes in each direction and the center, either median or turn lanes, right? So when we're thinking about possibly dedicating the outside lanes, right now it's labeled for tram and bike lanes. We want to think about the potential types of road users that could be using it, whether it's scooters, golf carts, LSVs, or anything in between, because that defines the lane width, because it also dictates, the minimum vehicle size and also the speed differential. Just high-level speaking, when you're combining different vehicles, you want to be cognizant of the speed differential for safety purposes. And so then the conversation shifts to picking the appropriate type of facility, once it's decided based on demand and community input. And what the data is telling us, what the appropriate mix of those road users are, then there's a wide variety of facilities that could be installed and put in place. And it varies, whether you're looking at an intersection where you're navigating conflicts between all the different uses and crossings, or along the corridor. Again, keeping in mind the available right-of-way and the curb-to-curb width. We've worked in communities where there was on-street parking, there was congestion, there were other trade-offs that needed to be made as part of the community engagement and planning process. The top picture on the left is actually a protected bike lane facility in Miami Beach. I served as the engineer of record on it, and there was a lot of dialogue that was had with the community, and there were parking trade-offs, and not one element was overburdened. And at the end of the day, it did end up being implemented, making it the first protected bike lane in the city and the county's first lane repurposing project. So this kind of goes over, the different policies and ordinances. I talked briefly about, policy plays and ordinances and code play a big role in, how these facilities are implemented and regulated. And you'll see how in different parts of Florida, how the different communities have handled it. And so I would say for Panama City Beach, it's similar to Fort Walton Beach, where there is a restriction on the maximum, speeds for LSVs and who can use it. So that helps inform, how the lanes are dedicated. And so this is just a couple of different examples of what's out there. I would preface by saying there is not a ton of shared bus bike lane facilities out there. Over the last 20 years, many communities have experimented with those, and there's a lot of lessons learned, as you'll see in the last slide in this section. But in this case, Santa Monica, which is another coastal community on the other side of the coast of the country, they've basically allowed bikes and other micromobility devices on dedicated transit lanes. But what worked for them is kind of manage those lanes by peak hour. So when there's a really high demand for buses or during events, then they kind of restricted the other micromobility. And so, this kind of ties into the potential safety and conflict areas that need to be evaluated when you're trying to combine different uses. This example doesn't immediately apply to Panama City Beach because it's already curbed. However, just to kind of show you a different approach of what's been implemented in some other places, this is in Bell Street Park in Seattle, Washington, but there's also Clematis Street in West Palm Beach, where it's basically the entire street is curbless, and it gives that feel of slower vehicles, everybody slowing down to below 20 miles an hour, and so it allows kind of that more organic sharing of micromobility devices that may apply to other streets tying into Front Beach Road. In Nashville, Tennessee, we helped them with their mobility plan. In that case, there were dedicated bike lanes already. We were evaluating connecting those bike lanes with other bike facilities. It was evident that scooters were definitely more used than bicyclists, especially because of the terrain. And so there was a need for mobility lanes, not just bike lanes. So the conversation shifted to what is allowed on these mobility lanes. And so through some adaptive control, traffic control technology, and what you call quick build, basically demonstration project implementation to test these ideas, they were able to quickly move on implementing those mobility lanes. And then the last example is in Hennepin Avenue in Minneapolis. And so this section already had 3 lanes in each direction. And for a while, they had a dedicated transit-only lane, or a transit-only lane that bikes shared in some situations. And so based on evaluations, based on, the feedback that was received, the crash history, they decided to repurpose one of the 2 lanes that are for vehicles and allow buses on it, so that they can create a dedicated cycle track where only bikes and scooters can use it and not mix with buses. And so as a summary of this section, really kind of a lot of things come into play. Safety is a big factor as you think towards what makes sense for everyone involved in using the road. Limited right-of-way, as in the case of Front Beach Road, especially, this is in all urban areas, is a common issue. Intersections are, as we think of the different potential designs and facilities, it comes into play when you think about the design and also how it would operate. Who gets priority, if that, and then seasonal traffic. In a lot of communities that have a high level of peak season that varies dramatically across the year, there are opportunities to program certain users during certain times of the year. And so the last point is that, it's to really understand and evaluate and recommend what goes into the different parts of the right-of-way. It's important to go back on a high level and establish a mobility plan that looks at all of the different components that I'll show here in the next couple of slides. But first, just want to emphasize that these are ideas, not recommendations, but right now, using what's out there already and what's under construction and about to be constructed, just looking at the curb-to-curb width, if we were to think about the different speed differentials and what I had mentioned about, when you're sharing vehicles of different sizes and speeds, it creates safety issues. one potential avenue is to create a protected mobility lane. And that could be protected with just a simple stripe buffer or a vertical barrier. And the idea is that if you want to create a dedicated lane for vehicles that are traveling 20 miles an hour or less, then you're offering this facility so that it's successful and useful for all ages and ability. And so you want to protect it even more. And another idea is, along Front Beach Road, there's a lot of businesses, and so a lot of driveways. One way to mitigate, access management issues is to dedicate a facility only on one side of the road. And basically that creates a smoother transition between the different modes in that cycle track that you see here on the left, and it could be on either side. But it also poses challenges when it comes to navigating intersections. However, in many urban areas, it's been implemented through, for example, dedicated bike signals or giving priority through signalization, special, left turn signals and others. And the last idea is, to try to kind of completely avoid the driveways and access management issues is to put that cycle track in the median. Now, those two examples, this one and the previous one, would obviously require shifting the median and others, but it just presents the possible ideas that are out there, and keeping in mind that we're not moving the curb at this point. And so, I touched on the need for a high-level mobility plan that really kind of looks at all of these different components that you see here. It is not just a design, oriented solution, but it's, zooming out and looking at what the current situation looks like in terms of volume, policy, speed, uses, and demand. And that demand is not just specific to Front Beach Road. For example, with the residences that are within a 3-mile distance to Front Beach Road, would they be biking if there's a connected bike facility that gets them to Front Beach Road? And so all of these different components that you see here are intended to kind of create that comprehensive evaluation that, next one, that, once you start with that comprehensive data-driven approach, and it's telling us objectively what could be done, you're also along the way engaging the community, hearing their challenges and opportunities and their preferences. And that basically is all combined into potential alternatives that are viable, that are data-driven and supported by the community and feasible. And so at the end of the day, what you end up with is a set of recommendations that touch on design possibilities, policy, and programmatic, such as the different operational examples that I just talked about. And where we usually end is also propose basically a phased approach. There could be things that could be done within a year or 5 or a 20-year horizon. And that also could be tied to many different funding opportunities, whether it's the city's capital improvement program or there are a number of federal grant opportunities that are out there right now that could be applied. And that's kind of how we approached it in other communities that were successful in getting that funding. And so with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm happy to open it up to answer any questions.
Yeah, so the direction for this 30,000-foot overview included autonomous vehicles. Were you able to investigate that at all?
So for autonomous vehicles, it becomes a conversation of how to tie it to, the operational infrastructure. And so,
And I'll just kind of, to preempt you a little bit.
Yeah.
As part of my own background, actually kind of based on the Vice Mayor's suggestion at that meeting, I went and took my own trip to a place that's doing autonomous vehicles, which is Jacksonville.
Okay.
So Jacksonville has a fully autonomous loop right now
Yeah.
with attendants. And they're using transit vans, and they have a full operations center there. But the transit vans aren't the most attractive. I think they would agree with me on that. but they also have a new provider coming in, Haulon, which is producing a much more attractive vehicle. So I think as we look at these 30,000-foot overviews, that kind of information should be available to the council as well, because there's a lot of lessons learned. I'm not saying autonomous is where to go. I took a trip on their autonomous vehicle, and I think it's appropriate to say it's only semi-autonomous at this point because the attendant had to take over a few times. But as we look forward to future of transit in PCB or using these lanes potentially temporarily for one use and then moving to a more forward-looking use, we should be presented that information.
Absolutely. And I do want to say that right now, we did look at overall transit, ridership and use. And right now, of course, it's limited with the county bus system and the tram. And so where the autonomous, vehicles, but also transit-specific elements come in is that if through a mobility plan process, a decision is, made, a policy decision towards let's look more about making transit use more accessible and attractive, then absolutely it opens it up for transit access and therefore dedicating more right-of-way towards that. And I know that West Palm Beach also just deployed a similar technology.
And Altamont Springs, I think, has also been.
And Lake Nona.
Yeah, and Lake Nona has one too.
Yeah, and so that across Florida, they've been testing the different, and the community feedback is that the convenience is a huge factor, but then they're also making tweaks along the way. Should we dedicate stops or not? Should we charge or not? Boca Raton is the same thing, and they decided to give it free of charge to downtown users. And that really made it on demand and removed some vehicles off the road. And so that is absolutely a necessary part of the conversation in this day and age.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank CEO Nate Ford for being so generous with his time over at JTA. They were really open to talk about this technology, so I think that's the kind of thing that should be presented to the council so that everyone can kind of get a sense of what they're doing over there in a forward-looking manner. Yeah.
And I would say, and I'm very interested in the autonomous vehicles, but also try and get an idea of what type of infrastructure would be needed for that to be implemented, such as, do we need to run, fiber optic and have better internet that can control it or dedicate to it? I know we've got conduit we're laying conduit in the ground as we go with the CRA that would allow us to possibly do that. So.
Yeah. So I think this was a great study or a great overview. It's a little bit incomplete. We should probably look at that autonomous. Personally, I'd like to eventually move forward toward this council kind of shaping a general idea and then looking forward to transit studies so we can have, inbound or origin destination information, parking information, but I don't think we have all the facts right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, especially with the autonomous, like I said, if we get what we need to have that in place and what that will, entail, then we can really dive into it.
Yeah.
Mayor, the transit vehicle that you went to see in Jacksonville, was that a autonomous tram with multiple people on it, or was it just small electric, like the freebies they use in Coral Gables or down south that hold like 12 people or something? Yeah,
so JTA, Jacksonville Transit Authority, is moving toward this kind of small person or a small 12-person seater. So this was a Ford Transit van. It was literally a modified electric Ford Transit.
Approximate width and length was what?
A normal transit van like that you see doing deliveries. The reason I think the council should be exposed to what's coming out from Haulon is that's a much smaller vehicle. They're going into production this next year. In fact, they've decided to headquarters their international production facility in Jacksonville, in part because what Jacksonville has been doing for autonomous. And also they have an airport, a railway, and a port, which sounds a little bit like an area I know. But yeah, so the smaller haul-on vehicle is a bit smaller. The one they've deployed right now to kind of test the technology is a Ford Transit van. So you'll see them doing deliveries.
Right. What I didn't want to see happen is down the road, us going in there tearing up curbs and sidewalks and.
Yeah, it's no bigger than,
We
yeah.
just repurpose the
Right.
lane with
Yeah.
striping and make it an autonomous lane, or find a place for these people on the electric bikes and the scooters and, this mobility's changed in the 25 years since this CRA has started. I mean, we didn't have all this, so it's definitely changed. So we definitely need to take a good look at it, but I just don't want to get down the road 5 or 10 miles and have to start tearing up everything we just did. But you don't see us having to do that. It just repurposed the lane for,
Not based on the examples that have been testing the different autonomous vehicles. It's basically using the current infrastructure. And in terms of the autonomous transit shuttles, it would be just the regular vehicular lanes. And then the technology is coordinated through apps, basically. So
so
it's
we
not-
just continue on with our CRA projects and the widening of the roads and doing what we've been doing for the last 25 years.
Yeah,
Moving forward, try to finish it.
Yeah, so far. So, basically the rest of it, when we consider design options and looking at this, we stuck with a curb to curb. And then down the road, basically the testing has been through traffic signalization and things like that as opposed to underground.
Okay.
Have you worked with any communities in the past that have had a phased approach, kind of like we have two different segments on other ends, that what does success look like in the short term for these lanes, and what does success look 5 years out, 10 years out, and 20 years out? What does that look like? I think that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, the phased approach has been pretty popular and successful in Florida because it's kind of basically making sure, you test and agree and it's successful, the idea, before you invest in it. And so we've tested, I know Nashville has been testing technology. They won a $2 million SMART grant, federal SMART grant, and basically it was related to safety, but testing near-miss technology. But then that evolved into creating their own transportation management center that then tied into the example I provided into adaptive signal control, which helps with a lot of different technologies, but also managing congestion. And then on the physical side of things, another example in Miami Beach we're doing right now, they wanted to implement a cycle track. And the city does not have a cycle track right now. They weren't sure how people would use it if it would be successful. And so we did a demonstration project, which essentially means it was an accelerated design process. And, they laid out the paint with temporary physical barriers. And they're finding it to be successful, and they actually just decided to make it permanent. So I think it's a great idea to follow a phased approach.
Okay.
So maybe kind of next baby steps, two things. One, bring back some information on the currently deployed autonomous technologies, at least in Florida. And then two, examples of phased approaches.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that.
And infrastructure requirements.
And infrastructure requirements, especially for the autonomous or other phased approaches. And
Yeah.
like I said, we don't have, I'm not asking to do direction on it now.
And I think we need to look at the speed limits on these e-bikes and stuff. They're running down the road 40, 50 miles an hour on the sidewalk and then in the road. And
Yeah, that's become.
Yeah.
you said they're
Yeah, the
putting
e-bikes
speed
are-
limits on these e-bikes and.
Yes, so that's industry level debate basically right now. Bike lanes are meant to be safer mediums for bike riders, but then when you add the e-bikes, they go up to maybe 25. So there's this conversation. So-
Ungoverned, they go much higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how they've been handling it is through, if you're gonna use the bike lane, you're gonna stick with 20 miles and under, and so that involves enforcement and signage and wayfinding and other.
Yeah. So, but back to what I was saying, at some point, we're gonna have to do a traffic or transit study. I'd like to just start us thinking about that and not asking for any direction from the council on that.
Right.
But we need to get the information first. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Front Beach Road mid-block crossings.
Hello again, John Adair, Public Works. On August 28th, staff presented to council various alternatives for harmonizing the different mid-block crosswalks that we see throughout the Front Beach Road corridor. Council directed staff to proceed with trying to make them all uniform and to also reach out to the county and speak to them and see if we can make them uniform throughout the whole, the whole coast. On November 13th, thank you, City Council, you approved a task order with Halford Associates to prepare design plans for that project. We are now ready to present where we would like to go in some of the initial discussions that we had with the
Mr.
county.
Adair,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to pause you. I think we've kind of had a decent number of presentations right now. I know maybe folks may need a break.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
So why don't we do a 5-minute recess and come back? All right, thank you.
Yeah. No, good. No, I still have plenty in my bottle. I think I might go to the restroom.
Let's resume the meeting, and just a heads up for everyone, we do have a event outside, so we're going to see how far we can get before that event, but we're going to have to take another break, it looks like.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be very brief, because I said most of it, but basically, this is the mid-block crosswalk safety improvement recommendations. So we were, tasked with providing a harmonious Front Beach Road corridor, and here are our recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning again, council. We'll get through this as quickly as possible. Let me jump right into it. This is some exhibits that we will work with in partnership with HAF, the consulting engineer that was assigned the task work order. This first exhibit is just the kind of exhibit of the signs, the pavement markings that we are recommending for recommendation for improvement. I do want to caveat that the LED flashing border sign in conjunction with the RRFBs is a non-standard. We are showing it because you are interested in that combination, but there is really no guidance or no precedence based on that. So we're showing it, but we don't actually recommend the combination of it. There are some potential safety issues, concerns with having the different strobe effect of the LED sign versus the strobe effect of the actual RRFB itself. They're different patterns, and there could be cause confusion to the traveling public, as well as those who may be susceptible to seizures as well. So that's just, we're showing it, but we don't recommend it. We just put it on here because it was kind of you guys wanted to learn a little bit more about it.
And the RRFBs are?
They are.
In the road.
What's that?
They're the in the road ones? Sorry, you had an acronym, we gotta.
The RRFBs are the little rectangular one below the sign. That is the actual rectangular rapid flashing beacon that is approved for these situations. So just the LEDs, littles going around the signs are the ones that we do not recommend in conjunction with the RRFB on the same signpost.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you'll see that in the actual follow-up.
So just so I'm clear, what is non-traditional? The one around the sign or the one under the sign?
The one around the sign
Okay.
in
That's all.
combination with the RF. You can still have the one around the sign, but it's not typically accompanied by the RFB on the same signpost.
What color?
Yellow, sir. And I can give some more. I know that was a question last time, why not red? Basically, red is restricted by the MUTCD to only apply to signals and basically stop signs. And it also could cause driver confusion in these areas. The intent is that yellow presents a warning to the public or to the motorist that, hey, there may be somebody in the crosswalk ahead. Drivers are legally required to stop regardless of whether it's a marked crosswalk, regardless of whether there are signs or no signs.
I
So
think as long as we have a safety zone in the middle, an island that people can take half a bite of the apple instead of just getting the.
Yes, sir.
the go-ahead,
Absolutely.
and they gotta go 80 feet across
Right.
2 lanes and that on the east.
And in the
end,
2-lane
that's
sections, we don't really
terrible.
have an option, but in the areas where we have the medians, we're looking at providing those refuge islands in the median, in the middle, so that they have that
We
refuge to get
definitely
to.
need that refuge island. They don't
Yes, sir.
have that on the east end, and they've had a lot of pedestrian problems down
Right.
on the east end of Thomas Drive.
Okay. So this is just a 2-lane situation here. Very similar situation. This is a 3-lane. We do have portions along Front Beach Road where you have that middle lane that either is accompanied by 2-way left turn lanes or a median itself. And so we can do some striping, or we can provide an actual curb and gutter through this area and provide a little bit more better presence of a raised median for that refuge island. Once again, all the signs except for the flashing border signs is what we're recommending at this time. And you'll see that as part of the 3D renderings. This is the 4-lane section, more towards segment 2, where we have full build out, where we do already have that existing grass median for refuge. One thing that we did want to make prominent is that you see 2 signs from every direction as you're approaching a crosswalk, one on the left, one on the right. And so in some cases, you'll have back-to-back signs where it's just a 2-lane undivided. And in these areas, we'll have the sign in the middle as well. So providing at least 2 signs and 2 flashers that are visible to motorists at all times. And this is just an example rendering of what our recommendations are. The stop bar, the stop here for pedestrian sign, high emphasis crosswalks, and as you can see, the 2 signs are visible to drivers from both directions at all times, including the flashers as well. Another example that we could look at is where we do have the 3-lane section is that in-street pedestrian sign. We can also introduce curbs in this area to provide better barriers of protection, and also the signs that I previously discussed, visible from both directions at all times.
Councilman Casto? I think he's addressing your pedestrian
That's right.
refuge here. Did you want to speak to adding curbs or not?
I just like the islands, you know, as a safe place for people that are going across instead of going 80 feet across, you know.
And in areas like
5 lanes
this,
of
we may
traffic.
have that opportunity, but there'll be some areas where if it's really close to a side road or a side street where you can't provide that physical barrier. So we can definitely take a look and incorporate those where it makes sense.
Yep.
And then on the refuges, is it designed in to be angled?
Not currently, no. These are currently straight, and like I said, those will be limited to site conditions as well.
Okay.
We do have some on the newly constructed
That's kinda
segment
where-
3
yeah.
that are angled, but those are pre-designed to be like that, so there are limitations where we could. Basically, that's an offset, so we would have to actually move sidewalk locations and take in a lot of other reconstruction activities. And then this is the last section that we kind of showed before, same one, showing the signs, one in the median, the stop here for pedestrian in the grassed area there, and then the high emphasis crosswalk, so.
That's the one I like right there,
Right.
because you're taking half a bite of the apple at a time.
Yes,
and
sir.
You got a safe place in the middle there.
Right.
And I like the sign in the middle.
On that safe place in the middle, is there a button there as well, or no button to be able to reactivate the?
No, these are designed to where once you start the cross, it flashes the entire time until you get to the other side of the road. So it's timed to flash that entire time based on a certain walking speed that MUTCD outlines.
But if you get stuck in the middle, traffic's going, and you're using that area of refuge.
We can
there
look
it
at
is.
adding additional button in there. Wouldn't
I'm
be
not
that
saying it's
difficult.
needed, but I just,
The ones that have the LED lights in the asphalt seem to get people's attention at night especially, but there's been a lot of problems with those.
Yes, sir. They're great for the first 2, 3, maybe 4 years, but after that,
They haven't improved that technology?
Not to my knowledge. They've improved the type of lighting, that they're more visible. They've gone to more of the LED style, but they still are a long-term maintenance issue that require a lot of upkeep.
I know the ones we have, we're always having trouble with them, but they're 20 years old.
Right.
But they do, when they're working, they do get the driver's attention more.
They're just, like I said, a long-term maintenance, and they're not cheap either to install.
Right.
The other thing that we previously talked about that it didn't include in here was passive pedestrian detection, where it automatically detects pedestrians as they start that walk movement and automate the flashing. We have some of those in segment 3. You may have
Yeah, I've
noticed
seen them.
those, some of the bollards on the side of the road. We have had to replace those bollards on several occasions from being hit by vehicles, so those two would be a long-term maintenance issue. We are looking at some that sit on top of the sign and look down. One thing that we have found with those, that they do give off a lot of false readings if it's a dog, or they just don't have that recognition of humans being the ones that are actually crossing. So they do give off some false readings. So we're trying to look into those a little bit further and see if there's a better product out there that would be a better situation than the bollards or what we've come across so far. That's what our proposed recommendations are at this time.
Okay. Council wants to accept these recommendations? Any modifications?
I think the only thing, one of the big questions we're going to have to answer is, okay, he brought up the dual lighting of either the sign or the light underneath the sign. So do we want to keep it with both? Do we want to go with just the lights on the sign, or do we want to go with the light under the sign?
We did reach out to the county. The county is not in support of having both of those combined on the same sign either, because of the same concerns that I expressed earlier. And our recommendation would be go with what is currently approved by MUTCD and FDOT, which is the RRFB itself.
I would imagine that's a little bit brighter and
It is brighter.
more in
You
your
can see it
face
from a
than-
further
Yeah.
distance.
Okay.
And the cost associated with just improving those, you don't gain a whole lot of value because you already have a flasher there that's getting the driver's attention as well. Also, in the last presentation, we showed you the crash statistics at these locations. They're very low, and introducing something that's non-standard could actually increase your crashes as well. So it could be negative trade-offs associated
I
with
know, I
combining
know,
them
I'm fine
together.
with the lights underneath the signs. But I really like the signs on each side, and if there's a median, in the median.
Yeah,
that's
so
our
as recommendation, as recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, I like segment 3. I mean, segment 3's got the.
Yeah.
3 different.
Okay,
Those automatic pickup units that keep getting hit, where are they located?
They're in segment 3 near the roundabout.
I know, but how close, they're getting hit by vehicles, right?
Yeah, so they have to be fairly located to the curb line, and the reason is that if you locate them too far back, people may not walk through them like they're supposed to, and they only activate once you walk in between them.
Okay, and
so
how
they're-
far off the curb line are the pedestrian signs?
The signs themselves, they vary. As you can see here, there are some that are right behind the curb itself, so it's within 18 inches of the
'Cause
travel lane.
you know where I'm going with this, right?
Are they-
Put them right where the sign is, and then
Right.
they're protected, but I don't know if that's feasible or not.
It can be in some locations, and in others, it may not be that feasible.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be really a case-by-case situation, which is why we recommended to have engineers go out and evaluate each specific location. You may have a little bit variances from location to location, but the intent is to have consistency in the signs, the messages. They may be placed closer to the road, further to the road, but you still have that consistent message of the warning signs throughout the corridor.
But I'm not opposed to a button either.
I think the button works. I mean, I know they.
Yeah, we can definitely put a
They have
button
some of
in the
that new
middle.
technology that will actually track you
Everybody
walking
can-
across, but it's new,
Yep.
you know? Okay, we're good?
All right.
Yep.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, and as mentioned, we got an event, so we're gonna do,
that now.
I guess it's gonna be about a half-hour recess, my guess,
Yeah, 20, 30 minutes.
20, 30 minutes, okay, so let's call it 30 minutes, so we'll stop, we'll come back here in about 30 minutes,
All right.
and maybe get through all the presentations. Okay, this meeting, we have returned to the meeting. We have a final presentation. I wouldn't say the best for last, but eagerly anticipated presentation from Finance Director Deborah Gibson. And Ms. White, could you do a little bit of intro to this, kind of set the stage for Ms. Gibson?
Sure. So a few minutes ago, you heard Chief Talamantes come up here and talk about one of the missions of the police department is commitment to public safety. Well, one of the missions of the finance department is commitment to protection of public funds. And if any of you ever attended a fraud class, you find that in fraud, there's usually three things that are present. There's rationalization, which the city can't do a whole lot about. Somebody that rationalizes the need to commit a theft of some sort. There's pressure, which in this instance is defined as an unshareable financial need. There's not a lot we can do about that. But the third piece is opportunity, and that's where as an organization we have an obligation to put in place internal control policies and procedures and to periodically review those policies and procedures and to, in our daily work, make sure that we're following those policies and procedures so that we do properly protect the public's funds. And so at the last meeting, you had asked Ms. Gibson to come back specifically and talk about our purchasing card policies. So I think she's got a brief PowerPoint to go over those with you guys to kind of show you the controls and procedures we have in place with those to try to prevent that opportunity from being present where fraud or misappropriation of assets could occur.
Thank you, Ms. White. Ms. Gibson, please.
Good morning, Council and Mayor. As Ms. White said, I am here to present just an overview of the city's purchasing card policy. This policy, it supports the effective operations, and at the same time, it also reinforces accountability. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of our policy and how it safeguards the use of our public funds. Okay, so the purpose of the purchasing program was to improve efficiency for small routine purchases and support membership, dues, training, and travel. That's what the purchasing program is mainly established for. It also allows direct purchasing for approved goods and services, and it also ensures compliance with our travel and procurement policy. All of this helps to maintain and prevent the misuse of our purchasing cards. The cards are issued to full-time employees that do small purchases for the city with a single transaction limit of $2,500. And the monthly spending limits are set by the department directors and finance. And when a new employee comes on and they need a card or the department director decides that they need a card, they have to fill out the new employee user purchase request form, and the director and the city manager or the assistant city manager has to approve the authorization for this card. So we don't just hand the cards to the card holder and say, here, just go spend. You just can't spend over $2,500. They must go have training with finance. The card holder has to come in and pick up the card in person. They attend the mandatory training, and also finance does refresher training courses. We try to do at least one a year for all the card holders within the city. Just to make sure that they remember, okay, these are our policies, these are our procedures, and this is your can-dos and you cannot-dos. Sometimes cards are lost or stolen, or sometimes even with these P cards, you can't have fraudulent activity from from somewhere else, just like on your regular card. The finance has to be notified immediately, and then we cancel the card to prevent any unauthorized use of the card. When an employee terminates, the department head must return the card to finance, and if the card cannot be collected by the employee because he leaves and never comes, just leaves and never comes back in, finance is notified so that the card can be canceled. And also, if an employee transfers to another department, the card holder or the department head must notify finance. And when the employee transfers, the new director will decide whether that card is retained by that employee or whether that card is canceled. Depends on what that director decides, if he needs to be able to make small purchases. So the proper use of the purchasing cards, only the employee named on that card can use that card. I can't give my card to city manager and ask him to pay my dues, because that's a big no-no in our policy. So only the employee that's named on that card can use that card. It's for city authorized purchases only, and absolutely no personal uses. And it's not to be used on city corporate accounts, which means that if a vendor will actually invoice the city, then we will pay from the invoice, and you cannot pay from your P card if a vendor will invoice. And this P card program is not a replacement or a substitution of our purchasing policies.
So staff can't use it to circumvent purchasing policies. If it's something that staff can't use it to circumvent purchasing policies.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, sir. There are spending limits. The single standard limit is $24.99. The monthly limit changes, if needed, can be only changed with the approval of the city manager or the assistant city manager. Also, we have set up the merchant category codes, or MCC codes, or MCCs, and these are set up to authorize only specific purchases or expenditures, and that helps us comply with compliance and control of the program. This means that if I go and try to buy office supplies and that MCC code is not set up on my card, I cannot purchase those supplies. Okay, and also in our purchasing card program, we have it set that no international purchases can be purchased, and absolutely no cash advances. Nobody has an opportunity for those. So when an employee or card holder, I keep saying employee, I'll mean card holder, actually makes a purchase with a card, they have to keep that itemized customer receipt. They have to sign it and date it, as even though the receipt's dated, and they upload it into our finance SharePoint. And the monthly statements and all the receipts are due to finance by the 15th of the month. The department has responsibilities to the directors and supervisors. They must verify that the purchase was necessary and appropriate. They must verify that the date the goods and service was received, and they also must verify that there's an itemized receipt and invoice included to be uploaded. So we have an oversight for our reviews that gives a good oversight at every level. So the employee purchases are reviewed by the director. Director purchases are reviewed by the city manager or the assistant city manager. And the city manager's purchases that are greater than $25,000, the city council has already pre-approved. And also the elected officials are not issued purchasing cards. In 2025, the city manager and assistant city manager made charges on their card. The city manager's total charges for the entire year, for fiscal year 25, was $4,929.74. $2,939.16 of those charges on the city manager's card was for council training, travel. And then the city manager charged $1,990.58 on his card, and it was for travel, dues, and memberships. I will say that when the city manager, these charges from the city manager's card for the council, just like I just previously stated, that he made the purchases with his card. He did not give it to a city council member to make the purchase whatsoever, so he maintains the actual card himself. The assistant city manager had $3,000 charged on that card this year, or last year, and it was for an annual membership to the PCB Chamber of Commerce. Okay, so the finance department plays a major role in this program and oversight. Finance is authorized to process the monthly payments of the P cards in a timely fashion. and we make sure that it's done timely so that we have no late fees occurring. Also, Finance Department maintains compliance and supports the audit readiness of the program. And the P-card administrators, there are 2 P-card administrators in the P-card program, and neither of those administrators have permissions to change any of their information on their own profile. We also have a P-card audit trail report that is run by management, which is outside of finance, to keep that segregation and that internal control.
So what does the audit trail have?
The audit trail has a list of every single card holder, so I'm one of the administrators. So if I go in and, let's just say, issue a new card, okay? So anything that happens that month that's on that audit trail, it says if the city manager approved a increase in the spending limit for one time, for whatever reason, that will show up on there. Anything that is done, and it shows who does it. It shows whether I did it or the other administrator. So any activity, any cardholder activity is supported by that audit trail that's ran.
Okay, so adjustments to controls, everything would be visible in that audit trail, and then that audit trail report is run by management?
Yes, the audit trail is ran by actually Assistant City Manager currently, and he reviews it, and, I mean, it's outside of finance, so.
Yeah.
So that finance can't be doing anything that we shouldn't be doing, right? Okay, and just to kind of summarize the program was set to improve the purchasing efficiency. There are strong controls to ensure accountability. There's a clear hierarchy that protects the public funds as far as reviewing and approving these purchases, which is also providing with the finance and management oversight and compliance and monitoring of the program.
Okay.
And if anyone has any questions or follow-up, I'd be happy to.
And, yeah, very informative. Thank you for your trust of the public funds. How do you ensure the operations, policies are great, and you touched on it a few times, but how do you ensure the policies are implemented? You have the regular training, what else?
We go through regular training. All the card holders are actually go through training. Each year we review the policy to see if there's anything kind of new or see if something might have happened during the year that we go, oh, we don't have a policy. It's not really in our policy. We need to slide that in our policy. I think our policy is very strong, is a very strong policy.
Yeah, just regular reviews of the operations.
We review it. We do review it yearly.
Okay.
How many cards do we have issued?
The number, I do not know, but I will tell you that we do issue to a lot of employees now, because a lot of employees have to make small purchases that we can't go and get invoicing for. I think a lot of people are issued these cards, but they do not, I would say probably 50%, more than probably 60% don't even really put anything on the card. It's there if they have to make it. The director has determined that they would make purchases, and so therefore they're issued a card. And after 2 years, their card becomes inactive. And at that time, if nobody has used that card, or that person has not used that card, finance reaches out and asks the director, say, does this person really, really need a card issued?
Do we have inventory practices for items that are purchased? So we have a drill or something that's purchased on a credit card. You run to Lowe's, you're building something, and you need that. Do we have inventory that we keep, that 2 drills were purchased and we go and look for those drills down? I'm using that's probably a poor example, but we have that.
Yes, sir. So as far as the inventory side for the financing, in past, it's been hard to keep up with the smaller equipment, smaller things as a $30, $40 drill. But we have in the past several years implemented a huge inventory process, and every department is inventoried, fixed assets and small equipment, down to the nuts and bolts. We go in each year, finance goes in each year and counts every single washer that's in Public Works. And we compare it to what, I mean, just like inventory, you have your purchases here.
Sure. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yes, sir.
Well, thank you for doing that.
How many washers do we have? Sorry, no.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it gets down, it does get down to it gets
Yeah.
down to the washers. And it's kind of funny this year because I have one of my accountants who actually handles the fixed assets and inventory, like she oversees, and she's a hard nose with it. And this year, I told her, I said, you know, I'm gonna walk out. I'm gonna go one whole day. I'm gonna spend with you doing inventory. You should have seen those guys. Like they had counted, and they were standing there as I'm counting, like, oh my goodness, I'm 3 off. I know. Wait, it's in the wrong bucket. Here it is. This is the size of it. You know, like they do take it. They do take it very serious, which we really appreciate, and you know that speaks a lot for the city.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thank you for your leadership. Yeah,
You're welcome.
Making that happen.
Thank you. Okay, now we move on to public comment on the consent agenda or non-agenda business. Please come up, state your name. You'll have 3 minutes and keep it relevant to city business. Again, this is on the consent agenda and non-agenda business.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Michael Stein-Kirchner. I'm addressing this issue because it's come previously outside of the things that are related to the high impact. Previously, and in conversations with different individuals, there have been times where there's been public beach closures outside of what we traditionally have seen and what the high impact. For example, last year there was a sort of a last-minute closure of the Sandy Beach overnight. My question is, obviously, because it's not included in something that we'll discuss later with the HIP, what is the county's or what is the city's intention regarding beach closures for the upcoming season? And then also, will that be done by a separate ordinance, which makes it outside of HIP? There is a provision, I understand, in HIP. If a HIP is declared, that the city manager does have the authority, but will the city council still come back? Also related to that, as we've seen different changes in different rules, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit recently sided with property owners for, even in an emergency, a government entity closing the beach to the property owners. That was Alford v. Walton County.
Mr. Steinkircher, this is really sounding like an agenda comment.
I'm sorry?
This is really sounding like an agenda comment on the HIP.
It's not, actually. It would be any time that the government decides that they wanted to close the beach without even declaring a HIP, because previously that's what happened last summer around 4th of July. So some clarity as to the city's interpretation of that and what the intent of the city is if a HIP is not declared in terms of how beach closures would be handled, and whether that would apply to above the erosion control line or the entire Sandy Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Charles Nelson, 221 Summer Breeze Road. In the item G5, Mid-Beach roads closings. Thank you, first of all, to the council and to the Public Works Department for at 66 putting up the pedestrian lights and such. It has been a great improvement and has indeed enhanced safety. However, as one who uses that quite regularly, it is not adhered to by cars. People will go right through there, even with people in the crosswalk, as has happened to me and as I've observed. As a kind of a suggestion to throw out, in addition to the light, perhaps some sort of a sound could be emitted that maybe that would take the people who were driving and kind of increase their knowledge that they're going through a stop area and maybe they should stop. I know you go on Back Beach Road, it's very common that we have people with their windows open with the heavy metal music coming out and it can be heard over a large area. It's meant to be obnoxious. It is obnoxious. Perhaps a more modified version of that could be considered at these crossings. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Further public comment on the consent agenda or non-agenda business?
Good morning. Alfredo Martin, 13407 Oleander Drive. I'm sorry about my throat. Thank you for everything you're doing. But I just want to mention something. On the Front Beach Road, you had 3 examples, and you mentioned Santa Monica, you mentioned Minnesota, and you mentioned Nashville. I don't know how many of you being in Santa Monica. I'm sure in Nashville and also in Minnesota, but those are not good examples, okay? I think you need to involve the locals, have town halls or whatever it is, so we can give you the information. I know you live in Long Beach, so you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
I lived over 40 years in California. I did business in Santa Monica. I did business in Minnesota. And Santa Monica is the second worst beach city of the entire West Coast. Okay, they are bankrupt. The traffic is horrendous. The homeless are all over the place. And sometimes people say, why the homeless are coming there and they're not coming here? They will come here if we don't protect the beaches and the traffic and the cars. Santa Monica is really bad, and I really, if you involve the residents, and in the beginning, I moved in 2012. In the beginning, I was very quiet because when you're new to a place, you have to learn. And I'm still learning, but we want to help you. We want to assist you. We want to be a plus for you. We don't want to confront you. So it's a lot of people in this community that live in those areas. Like Minnesota is my second city because I did business for 20 years in St. Paul and Minnesota, and that's a disgrace place too. And I'm not talking about what's happening now. I'm talking about if you look at 2024, the traffic. So bottom line, we need to involve the community when you do all these plans so we can give your input, our input. And the other thing is, please, 2 things. Front Beach Road between the second pier and Lantana, we need to do some painting on the street because somebody's going to get hit there. You have the children going from Bahama Beach. I live on the beach, but I can see these families. Third, please enforce the law about noise, speeding, and reckless and driving and speed exhibition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further public comment on the consent agenda and non-agenda business?
My name is Captain Gary Wayne Beck. I live at 2601 Beach Street. Folks, today we're talking about racketeering. You know, the other day our local news media used my name in a news article and they referred to Miss Cindy at 108 Heather Drive. When they referred to Miss Cindy, they said that she was a repeat offender. I would like everybody to remember this is a disabled old lady who earned her retirement. They got charged $16,000 for 1 day's labor. Then they turned around and charged her another $42,000. Everybody's heard her testimony. During the meantime, we got to remember this is our public servants that's preying upon the weakest of our people, which is the elderly, you know. And what did she say? Oh yeah, they posted it to her property, then they backdated it, proving they wanted her property. Now just the other day when the code enforcement came on my property, guess what they did? They illegally searched, they illegally seized, and they took out the sweat equity of my property.
Your property is not in Panama City Beach.
And then they turned around, and then they turned around and they put it directly on the property, meaning you're not, you know, they ain't trying to fine you, just trying to get your
Sir,
property. That's the link I'm trying
please
to make
speak
to
to
WICO.
city business.
City
Please speak
business,
to
that's
city
right.
business.
Okay, that's right. It's happened in the county, right? Let's go to talk about Chief Talamonte back there. You know, I sit there and I watch him talk with all this stuff and show all this stuff about with the police and first one thing another. How long have I been trying to get in touch with a sheriff officer because of the fact that I've got a sexual predator that's been
All right,
preying on me?
sir, that is also in the
that's
county.
right.
We've
That's right. It happened in the county,
addressed
so you
this
don't care
repeatedly.
about it, right?
Sir,
But during the
you need-
meantime, I'm talking about the fact that, you know, this Panama City Beach, you know, y'all are racketeering because y'all are all in on it. That's like with the taxes. Whenever the taxes I tried to pay on Panama City Beach, they
You don't pay
since-
taxes in Panama City Beach,
I was
sir.
on Panama City Beach whenever they took, and I had a tax deed, right? And I paid the tax deed, then the very
Sir, this
next
is
year,
not
they took another
relevant. Please keep your
$2,000
comments
on my
relevant to
property.
Panama City
You can't
Beach.
not pay.
Sir, please keep your comments relevant to Panama
It is
City Beach.
relevant to Panama City Beach when it comes to the Constitution and Bill of Rights, you know? And what y'all been ripping from the people. And we're talking about what? You know, the tax deed that I paid.
Okay,
Yeah, I
sir,
didn't know
you've
it was
repeatedly
2000.
violated
What you
this.
gonna send
Sir,
me
please sit down.
Get me?
Sir, please
We're
sit
gonna measure
down.
the distance of how
Sir,
many
please
times
sit
somebody
down.
robbed me of my constitutional rights, you know?
Sir, please sit down.
If
Chief.
you would have paid as much attention, Chief Talamonte, tell him what you've done when it comes to them freaking investigating the child. You want him out or you want him staying? Yeah.
No.
Go ahead,
If he's
tell
not going
him
to sit,
what you've
he needs to go.
done. I want you to tell the people what you've done when it comes to investigating crimes. And don't grab me. When it comes to investigating the crime, take your hands off me. When it comes to investigating the crimes that's been committed against the people, what have you done? You know, whenever this guy calls me on the telephone, how many times have you asked me on the telephone, have you heard from the guy?
This is a substantial disruption.
Use me to take your hands off me. There you are again. Chief, thank you, Chief.
It's a substantial disruption repeatedly. Okay.
I mean, at one point, we're at progressive discipline. Does this constitute another ban? I'm in favor of it. I'm had enough. I mean, it's not on topic, has nothing to do with anything, so I don't know what we did last time.
I agree. I don't know. Ask legal counsel what we can do, but I don't think we should have our meetings disrupted like that every time.
Yeah, I mean, so your policy dictates that you're allowed to essentially use progressive discipline to enforce your rules, especially by majority of the vote of the council, you're allowed to, issue a temporary ban. I think the last one was 30 days, is that correct? So that's, you can make that determination based on his behavior.
Yeah, I mean,
next step's what, 60 days, 90 days? What would acceptable progressive discipline be?
yeah, I think 60 days is appropriate.
Okay, I can live with 60 days if you guys can.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, I don't have any objection to that.
Okay.
You need a motion on that? Or?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to ban his public comments and, well, I don't know how we need to, what is the motion?
He could still submit-
He could still submit a written comment.
So what we have allowed previously is that he would be able to observe the meeting in the lobby, and he would be able to submit written comments. So he would not be able to attend physically the meeting in this room or make public comment at the podium. Is that
Okay,
what
so
you
public
you
comment
wanna
would be limited to written comment.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
That's a motion for Gary Wayne Back's comments to be submitted via written. He can view from the lobby if he would like to for a period of 60 days from today.
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Ms. Fazzoni?
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Mayor Teddemer?
Yes, ma'am. Further public comment on the consent agenda and non-agenda business? Okay. Mr. Whitman, can you address anything? I think we can talk about the beach closures during the HIP.
I can address that real quick if you want. The chief's still working on that. We will bring that for your recommendation to close the beach, but he still needs to talk to some of the property owners like Calypso's. They've changed management. We always get support of the upland owner before we close their beach, so he's still working on that. I should bring that to you the second meeting of February like I normally do. In reference to Mr. Nelson, we'll increase our traffic control up there with the pedestrian crossings, and I'll talk to the engineers about the sound device in that area. I know they work good, but then I get complaints about noise on the background of the people that live there, so let me research that and I'll get that back to you. Most of his comments were addressed to the council, so I'll let you address that, and same thing, I'll have the chief try to increase the the enforcement there for the reckless driving, the loud noise, and the pedestrians crossing the street.
What about the painting of Front Beach Road? striping.
Is that in regards to that's what I was.
Yeah,
I would
I think he
imagine
was
that's
talking about
regards to
striping.
crosswalk.
We're about done with our roadway study. That'll be one of the lists that I can bring back to you to see if you want to add that to it, or if you want to wait till the CRA goes to that section. But
Okay.
that's one of the studies that you guys had us do when we did the studies on the road stripings, the curbs, the gutters, and everything else.
Okay. Yeah, and for the sounds, when you hit those, if I recall, those are mostly for
Hearing impaired.
hearing
Hearing
impaired.
impaired.
Yeah, or
And they
or
can-
vision impaired.
And they
yeah.
can be quite obnoxious
And
unless
I
they're
would-
turned off at night.
Find out if rumblers help make people aware of crosswalks coming up.
Yeah, the only,
that make sense?
The only issue with rumblers is they're always active.
Yeah.
Right, and so you'd be driving down, you'd be driving down Front Beach Road, and you wouldn't just have rumblers on one crosswalk. You'd start to see rumblers on pretty much every crosswalk.
We have a lot of crosswalks.
Yeah.
We make them play a song.
Yeah, make them play a song. I think,
Drew, the paint,
I think a state tried to do that and they failed repeatedly and spent a lot of money on it. But it's a good idea.
striping on Front Beach Road right there at the upside down house and Walgreens and all, as people are turning more eastbound. That you said the state was going to handle that, or that's going to be part of the striping project?
The state did some of the striping at the intersection there, but Alfie's talking closer up from the county pier to Lantana. That's something I'll work with our engineers, because we just did a roadway study to see what we need to do with striping, then I'll bring to
Yeah,
the council.
'cause
to see
people
what-
don't have a guide when they make that turn, because that paint or the thermoplastics wore off right in that.
The state was gonna do that when they did Middle Beach Road, and they're about complete with that project, and so I'll check it the next time I'm down there.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Great. Okay. Now move on to our consent agenda. Ms. Vizzoni.
Resolution 2665, a resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, authorizing the purchase of one 24-inch AVT EZ insertion valve and related installation services for the Utilities Department from Fortiline Waterworks in the total amount of $66,999. Resolution 2666, a resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, authorizing the city to negotiate agreements with Nova Engineering and Environmental LLC, PPM Consultants, Inc., American Environmental Engineering of Florida, Inc., and Terracon Consultants, Inc., for environmental compliance and remediation professional services. Resolution 2667, a resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, authorizing the city to negotiate agreements with Guatemala Engineering, Inc., Half Associates, Inc., George and Associates Consulting Engineers, Inc., Short Elliott Hendrickson, Inc., Incorporated, and Barge Design Solutions, Inc., for stormwater engineering professional services.
Okay. Thank you,
Motion
Ms.
to
Vizzoni.
approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Ms. Vizzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Register,
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn,
Yes.
Mayor Teddemer.
Yes, ma'am. We'll now move on to the regular agenda. Regular agenda item number 1 is Resolution 2668. Mr. Davis.
A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving an agreement with R.J. Gorman Contracting LLC for the City Pier Side Rail Renovation Project in the total amount of $482,026.52, authorizing the execution of qualifying change orders in a total amount not to exceed $48,203, and authorizing a budget amendment.
Okay. Any public comment on this item, Resolution 2668? Seeing none, Ms. Joyner?
Yeah, we talked about this in budget time. The pier was rebuilt in 2009, so we're fast approaching the 17-year mark. Partially aesthetics, but mostly safety. You know, everything over the water corrodes over time, and some of the bolts backing out, and we're keeping it as safe as possible, but it is just time to do this large replacement.
Okay. And so this would do the
Entire pier.
the
All
entire pier would be the railings?
railings and the spindles all the way down.
Okay. Okay. All right. We had a couple of bids, and we picked a little bid.
You went with a light color for that top decking. That's one question I had.
A light
it's not-
gray.
Doesn't get so hot.
A light,
Yeah, for the cap part.
yes, it's a
Yeah.
light gray.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Joyner.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve. Mrs. Pizzoni, please call roll.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Mayor Tudmer?
Yes, ma'am. We now move on to Resolution 2669. Mr. Davis.
A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, establishing a high-impact period from March 28th, 2026 through April 11th, 2026 pursuant to ordinance number 1667, designating high-impact period zones and declaring special event zones in areas of the city as more fully set forth in the body of the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment on this item?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Michael Steinkirchner. Two questions as it relates to the, well, a couple of items. The status of the PCB CARES program. The county approved that in October after the city council approving 1667. We have heard nothing at any public meeting from the city council, from the CVB or the TDC. Obviously, there are some duties that have been needed to be absorbed by the chair over there. So in addition to them being a county commissioner and being the chair of the TDC and now the CVB, the public and 99% of the people that are wanting to join the PCB CARES program, we don't have any information on it. How that's being developed, who's the person that's going to be leading, who we would offer suggestions to for that point. I was troubled when I looked at some of the things that were in the packet. One of the statements that was made was this is a non-discriminatory ordinance, but again, it seems as if some types of businesses are targeted and others are not. Hotels are not being targeted. The statement was made that hotels check everybody's ID when they check in. That is false. The reason I know this is because I tested it. Not every person's ID at a hotel is pulled when they check in. Proven fact, by example. The other thing that troubled me was when it stated it was non-discriminatory, and I find it odd that it's not included in the agenda pack with exhibits, but whoever created the packet put all of the historically black colleges and universities in red. That's passive racism when you did that. We understand there's just as many white kids coming here causing problems. But when you put the agenda packet and you highlighted that in red, that is offensive. And on behalf of my guests that come here, that abide by the rules and everything else, for that to be delineated as separate was racist. Thank you.
Okay, further public comment on Resolution 2669. Chief?
Mayor, Council, so we'll get this going. I guess a little recap, right? Spring break. Anybody new here? Any new visitors? Anybody just moved in? Spring break's been a part of Panama City Beach for decades, right? And throughout the decades, it's changed a little bit. Early, I would say, 90s, or going into early 2000s, the majority of things that occurred out here were alcohol-driven, maybe some fistfights, things like that. It was able to be handled by a very, I would say, smaller police presence than what we have right now. The acts of violence that we currently see today wasn't really as prominent as it was before. I would say around 2000, between 2008 and 2010, primarily when smartphone technology started to really, get out there, we started to see a specific increase in amount of visitors during the spring break timeframe that were not under spring break time period. Primarily, I would categorize them as 40-year-old adolescents that were here to capitalize on the party and the amounts of children that were down here in the festivities that were taking place for the spring break timeframe. At that point, we started to see an increase in gun violence, violent crime, sex assaults. So from about 2010 to 2015, it really the amount of violent crime started to go up significantly. To the point of 2015, the city had to enact certain spring break ordinances, which are still on the books today. Primarily no drinking on the beach, no parking lot parties, bars closed at 2, to try to get a hold of the criminal activity that was taking place. In 2016, we saw a decrease of criminal activity. We saw it was effective in regards to creating a better public safety environment. 2017 was pretty flat neutral to about what we saw in 2016. I would say even in 2018, we saw a trend that I would say made a better public safety environment than what we saw in 2015, 14, 13, 12, so on. Obviously, 2018, we had Hurricane Michael hit, so we had no spring break that following year, and then we had COVID. So to look at a long data set from the initial standpoint, the initial issuance of the ordinances, we have no real 5-year window that we could look at to see how effective those ordinances were. We were seeing effectiveness leading up to it, but we like to take a 5-year sort of glimpse. After COVID, we started to see similar activity that's from what we saw in 2015 and prior. Roadway takeovers, mob behavior, parking lot parties, and mass gatherings of people, which became a very big public safety concern. That continued to, that was year 21, 22, we saw a little bit more, 23, same sort of specific type of trend. What was different, and is what we're here now, is outside of the normal March typical spring break behavior, we saw a very large influx of high school age kids all congregate into Panama City Beach at one specific time frame. And what we discovered was that the states of Georgia and Alabama sort of put their dates of spring break within a week of each other. Around 65 different school districts are all out at one time. This has been a spring break destination for those school districts for quite some time, but never at the same time. So that's where we saw the very large gathering of underage, unaccompanied minors during their high school spring break, which is primarily the last weekend of March leading into the second weekend of April. Last year, at the onset of high school spring break, which began around March 27th, we saw the beginning of a slew of gun violence that we have not seen in such a short window of time, at least that I can remember. We saw about 7 gun-related incidents within Panama City Beach within a period of 10 days. That include a mass shooting event at Pier Park, which was perpetrated by individuals with automatic weapons, AR-15 style firearms, and it ended up being a gang-related act of violence in which 3 people were shot. That then spun up to the rest of the beach, seeing random acts of gun violence, to include the person accidentally shooting themselves, gunshots at local parking garages of our lodging establishments, and restaurants. It was very taxing on this police department. I want to sort of clarify why this high impact ordinance is important and necessary in regards to trying to maintain order during that time frame, and the amount of public safety resources that go into trying to maintain order. Your beach police department, on an average shift during July, which is essentially our biggest month in Panama City Beach when it comes to visitors here. All the lodging establishments are near 100%, all right, far more than what they are during high school. We average patrol from personnel, 10 to 13 people, can handle all public safety concerns within Panama City Beach. During the high school time frame, which we are recommending to be declared the high impact period, we have to increase staff anywhere from 430% in specific zones to over 1,000%. All right. For an example, I would say that on the July 7th, which I think is a Friday, we policed Panama City Beach with a period of 12 officers. You look at a Friday during the high school time frame, which falls within the high impact period we're suggesting, we have well over 120 officers that we need to protect Panama City Beach, its residents, and the property. When looking at how we were going to identify the high-impact timeframe and the locations in which these high-impact areas need to be. We looked at a bunch of different variables. A lot of it was really observation from our officers in our rank and file, in which we needed more officers at any specific time. We looked at our zone assignment sheets, and where do we have to deploy more officers at the time frame in which those officers aren't normally needed. And we identified several. I think they need to put up.
Pull it up.
Yep, they pull it up. And I will go through the map. I will tell you the logic, and then I will tell you how it will benefit at least our operations during those 2 periods. So this is basically a snapshot of Panama City Beach. If you look to my left, you will see the West End. In red, you will see the shopping complex of Pier Park. In yellow, you will see basically the red is covering the yellow. Okay, so basically it's from West Pier Park Drive to Powell Adams Road. The logic here is to utilize 2 specific tools to help with the public safety concerns of Panama City Beach. It would be the special event zone, and with your approval, the high impact ordinance. So the high impact ordinances, as we are recommending, will be isolated within a special event zone. So that would narrowly focus the high impact restrictions to the places in which we have identified to need it. So, and I will zoom out, I will give you some better looks of these specific maps as we move forward. But as a general, we're looking at a special event and high impact zone on the west end of Panama City Beach from West Pier Park Drive to Powell Adams Road, with the high impact area being the Pier Park Shopping Complex.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, Chief, but I think this demonstrates overall the directed nature of making sure to target where the high impact zones actually are.
That's correct.
To the rest of the city.
Yes, and when you compare it to the rest, to the entire city incorporated area, it's as small of a footprint as we could make it when we identified where we're going to have to take additional enforcement action. Going into the center, you will see a special event zone from Alf Coleman Road to Clara Avenue, which is primarily what we call our C zone, and the high impact area will be narrowly focused to the business districts that is hosting spring break events and the lodging establishments around it, as well as what we would see where we had issues of last year going up Lindell Avenue to some townhouse vacation rentals, in which we had to respond to, and we're receiving several complaints from the residents of that area that those vacation rentals were being taken advantage of by unaccompanied minors that were trying to host parties. You go to the east end of Panama City Beach, we were recommending that a special event zone be put up at Richard Jackson Boulevard, continuing east all the way to the east end city limits, from Middle Beach Road south to Front Beach Road. The high impact area would be isolated to the parking lot and the business structures of the shops at Edgewater, because we routinely have issues within that parking lot, not because of any faults of them, but just because of the vast availability of parking to individuals that want to walk what they call the strip, which is Front Beach Road. It then continues beginning on the east side of what would be the Bikini Beach Hotel, and continued east, encompassing the south and north side of Front Beach Road business complexes, to Front Beach Road sort of winds up to where the Circle K is at. So we'll just stay on Front Beach Road itself, and it will continue to the east end city limits of Front Beach Road. So east end of Bikini Beach, west end of Bikini Beach, all the way down Front Beach Road to the east end city limits. On South Thomas Drive, beginning there at Circle K, it will continue south, and it will end at I think it's Beach Access 25, which is historically where we have ended the beach closure for that specific area. Okay, it will then pick up again at the top of the Gulf condominium complex. And you guys could correct me if I'm wrong on these specific locations, and continue to the east end of the city limits. So this is a better look at, let me see here. I'm gonna have to start, I'll start here. This is a better look at Pier Park. In red, the high-impact ordinances will apply. We have spoken with Pier Park staff, and they are understanding that these ordinances are needed, obviously because of last year's events, to help maintain order. One of the trends that we are seeing with the high school-related kids is that Pier Park has now been discovered, and when we close the road, it becomes a pedestrian area for them to congregate. We had 2, maybe even 3 incidences where mass gathering and mob activity was taking place in the Pier Park area. Our primary concern, obviously because it doesn't matter how many cops we put out there, we're outnumbered, that the mob ideology would take over and they would essentially flood our stores. That's the last thing we need to happen in our crown jewel of our shopping complex. The special event zone, which would also be into effect, will allow us additional enforcement tools outside of the high impact area to include, towing vehicles for infractions, taking additional enforcement during the roadway, and really providing a very stern and I would say as strong of a police presence as we possibly can. So this is our center district, which we would say C-zone, South Coleman to Clara. In yellow, our special event zones, right? All the special event tools that were approved by our legislature a couple years ago will be in effect. In red are high impact areas. As you see, it is very narrowly tapered to where we have to position our officers, right, on walking beats and to position our equipment as in light towers, as in mobile video surveillance, to ensure that that district remains safe during those specific 2 weeks because of the vast amount of kids that we see walking up and down those corridors from a historical standpoint. And this is the East District. As you see here, all of it will be, all of it will have incorporated a special event zone criteria, which would allow us to take special event zone enforcement within that standpoint. Shops at Edgewater in red, high impact. Going towards the east to the west end of Bikini Beach, traveling, like I said, to the east end of the city limits, and stopping at where we historically stopped the beach closure, and then picking up again where the lodging establishments pick up primarily the Moondrifter top of the Gulf to the east end of the city, to the east end of the city to include the clubs. This is as narrow as we can focus the high impact ordinance from what we have seen in regards to historical data. We are aware and we are obviously fully committed to ensuring that the rollout of this is not us mandating, but it is us ensuring that we have an understanding and a partnership with the people that will be affected by the high impact area.
Chief, and I really appreciate this proposal's restraint. Is this strong enough for you?
We're going to find out. One of the things that we're trying to balance is getting the locations and dates out early enough so the affected business and full-time community can make preparations, with also trying to be patient and analyzing current intelligence that is coming in. With the intelligence that we currently have, the proposed recommendations for the high impact ordinances we think will be effective. However, it is still January, and we still have obviously a long time before the spring break season, specifically what we are recommending, which is primarily the first 2 weeks of April, happens. So there might be more information that comes in. But if we compare what we are recommending now to what occurred last year, it should be effective.
Okay. And the dates that are in this recommendation are?
Yes, so we are recommending that the high impact area begin on March 28th and be lifted on April 11th.
March 28th to April 11th. And so with the school dates, I noticed most of those school dates actually don't fall within, the college school dates don't fall within that March 28th to April 11th.
No, they don't. Our concerns last year were solely during the high school spring break timeframe. Leading up to that point, we were having a very successful spring break that we saw, what we usually see with traditional collegiate behavior. You know, some kids were out there, you know, maybe had a little bit too much to drink, but nothing that we could not handle within our normal parameters. It wasn't until we saw such an influx of underage, unaccompanied youth with high-capacity firearms in which that's when we started to see a problem.
And so most of the schools in red are not in the high impact period,
That's correct.
right?
That's
So
right.
this is actually demonstrating that this is data-driven rather than whatever Mr. Steinkircher said. Sir?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Has anyone reached out to you with this concern before?
No.
Okay, so, you know, I haven't heard, this is the first time I've heard this concern as well.
No, the recommended dates in which we are requesting that the high impact area and the high impact times be activated are correlate with the acts of violence that we saw last year. And when you've analyzed the school districts that are out last year, and you look at this year, it is the same school districts at the same time. So deductive reasoning would say that there's a very good likelihood that we could possibly see the same type of behavior if we don't start promote messaging and put in preemptive strategies to try to prevent the people that want to commit these acts of violence from coming back down here. And that is one of the tools, or one of the reasons we need this ordinance, so we could put this out there and try to prevent crime from even getting here in the first place.
Chief, on the dates, the 28th through the 11th, a Saturday to a couple Saturdays down the road, would it make sense to have this go? I remember years ago, one of the biggest things that happened in our community happened on a Sunday. When things kind of calmed down, if I remember correctly, we thought a lot of people left, and all of a sudden it sprung up again. I believe it was on a Sunday.
It was.
Is there potential for us to make this maybe Friday the 27th, when most people are out of school that day, till April the 12th, and yes, sir.
I'm sorry, so I think the ordinance prevents us from doing one for longer than 16 days.
Okay.
So that's why, so we can extend it by subsequent resolution, but this period is kind of the max period that you allowed yourself under the ordinance. So if we get down the road and the chief needs an extension, we'd have to come back to you and bring that. That's why the period is
just
where it is.
Saturdays, yeah, okay.
Because it does look like the majority of the school districts that are out are the 5th through the 11th.
That's correct. I believe it was 65, 67 school districts.
Right.
That are out. And, you know, open source intelligence is saying there is a very still strong interest for that underage youth group to want to visit us this time of the year. They are bouncing around Daytona and Orange Beach, so we're trying to send in some flyers for those locations as well.
Okay, should the council choose to pass this resolution, Chief, are you, and I'll ask Drew, are we ready to start advertising this, make sure we're engaging business owners, local population, as well as, you know, our goal, as enumerated at the time, was to get this out to the folks who may be considering coming here to cause chaos. And so I know folks on the TDC have been working on ad campaigns. Are we gearing up to get that done should we pass this resolution?
Yes, sir. The chief's already been talking to the community out there. Once you pass this, he'll do a full push on getting it on social media to the districts that he's going to be looking at, Alabama, Georgia, getting the message out. We're going to have a HIP. Here's the rules when you come here. Our intentions are about a week and a half. We'll sit down with the council, set up a date. We can do a press conference with you behind the chief, supporting the chief with the HIP to get it to the locals so they can send it to the national news as well. But we have a strong campaign after you approve this. We just didn't want to get ahead of you guys before we did that.
Okay.
So,
I'm ready to give it a shot, pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, so to that point, staff has already created a bunch of flyers and educational material that we are committed to hand delivering to every location that's going to be within the HIP. We'll mail it out. what can it communicate. We are creating, right now, maybe it's even done because I tasked staff with making sure it was done today, a link that we're going to put on our website that, because within the ordinance, it allows people that are locations that want to submit an alternate security plan, right, for us to review. There will be a quick and easy access link for you to fill out that information and for us to review. We are here to work with the community so this could be as fluid and as easy as possible. But the reality is, if nothing changes, we will expect the same result, right? Last year, it was a miracle nobody got killed. We had an active shooter situation in Pier Park perpetrated by underage youth with well over 20 rounds fired at 8 o'clock at night where children were leaving Dave & Buster's. How somebody didn't catch a stray, I don't know. Front Beach Road shootings, I don't know how somebody has not been killed yet, and that's what we are trying to prevent. But doing it in a manner in which it narrowly focuses on the problem and the time the problem has occurred.
Well, Chief, your team, our regional partners from the sheriff, FHP, Fish and Wildlife, our other cities have done an amazing job handling this. I think this tool is necessary and directed right at the problem times based on the data you've had. So I think it's worth implementing this year.
With that, I'll make a motion
to what?
To implement this high impact zone.
All right, second.
Okay, motion to approve and second.
Thanks, Dale.
Yes, sir. Ms. Mazzoni? Thank you, Chief.
Councilman Register?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Jarman?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Casto?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Coburn?
Yes.
Mayor Tedemar?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, we now move on to the city manager report. City manager.
No report today.
No report today. We now move on to the city attorney report. City attorney.
I will just address Mr. Steinkircher's comment about the CARES program. We are working on that. I have met with the CVB. We are putting that together. The resolution to set the standards for the program, we intend to bring to you at your next meeting on February 12th.
Okay, February 12th. Okay, thank you. Great. Moving on to council comments.
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Okay.
Nothing today, thank you.
Just congratulations to Captain Maddox, 30 years. That's a big deal, and thank you for putting your life on the line for this community for so long, and that's a big accomplishment, so thank you.
Okay, you're good. I do have a couple things. One, I just wanted to check the new, we're rolling out the new website. Will we be able to send text alerts on that website?
Yes, sir, we'll have that capability.
Okay, to send out text alerts. And then it is, as has been mentioned several times, the America 250 celebration. And one of the great things about this country is our great downtowns. I would like the council to consider one of the icons of our downtown, which is the pier. We just passed that today, making it visitor passes free for all Bay County residents for this America 250 year.
For the entire year?
For the year. As a celebration of the great American downtowns. We had discussed previously how we don't see as much uptake of residents going out on that pier as we would expect. It's mostly visitors. So I expect this to be fairly low fiscal impact, and it's just a nice thing to do for the community. Get them enjoying, coming to their downtown, enjoying it. It's relatively low impact. It's not a program. It's not a programmed part of the city. So our costs are pretty static. And honestly, if you go down to the pier, you go down as a visitor, you go down, or a pedestrian, you go down for 10 minutes, walk back. So it's not a high intensity activity. I think it'd be a nice thing to encourage folks going downtown and enjoying their pier.
And this is, I think a distinction is just pedestrian.
Just pedestrian.
Not if they're fishing.
Yeah.
Also, how are they going to identify, Cheryl, you could probably answer this because you ran into it before, but how are you going to identify that they're a Bay County resident, or what are they going to have to, what information are they going to have to show the guy at the gate? I think it's a good idea, but
Driver's license, Yeah, there would definitely be some things to,
Well, it'll have their address, but it won't say Bay County on their drive.
We'll do a list of all the zip codes in Bay County, so
Be off the zip code?
yeah, we'll do a zip code for all the cities in Bay County, so the attendant just looks at the zip code, matches it to a chart in there, and
Okay.
you're good to go.
You think you can manage that okay?
at high impact times, it'll slow down the line, looking at every ID. It's kind of why we don't usually check that kind of thing at admission, and we reserve that, where we have to spend the time looking at something to passes, but, I mean, anything can be done.
When you say high impact, the summer months then, huh?
Friday and Saturday night, sometimes that line is to the road for several hours, when people leave dinner at Pier Park. I mean, it's,
I've been down there a lot, and I've seen what you're talking about, the lines out to the road there, so I don't know, during the high impact areas, if it becomes a problem, maybe we change it to the off-season or the
Could you
months that are
create some
non-high impact.
blackout dates? I mean, for certain use potentially that wouldn't cause a detriment to the flow of people getting in and out?
Or have them come by the park and get a pass, get it done ahead of time, so when they get up there, they just show it.
same as showing an ID,
Okay.
But,
yeah,
yeah, but not
still
in the
identifying.
line, but,
What's that?
but not holding up the line at the pier if they
Right.
have to get a.
Yeah, because you'd want their picture and identify the person. You don't want a party to, sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Technological.
yeah, I mean, there are a variety of ways, could go online, whatever, but.
It's a great
Yeah.
idea, I'm
Yeah.
just wondering logistically how you're gonna.
It's basically a pilot program, it's
Right.
1 year.
If it becomes a problem, I guess you come back to us and tell us that.
Yeah.
it's-
Yeah.
How
I think
about
it's a great
this?
idea.
I think it's a great idea. Let's have staff come back and give us an idea about how they want to implement that. And I, for one, want to track it.
Yep.
So, however we implement it, make sure that we can track. And then we say yay or nay.
Sounds good.
Fine with me?
All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
All right, great. That's it. I will see everyone at the next meeting. Meeting is adjourned.